We've named our multivitamin Total Defense because it gives your body everything that it needs in order to defend itself from a lot of the stressors that we experience with modern living. These are things like toxins in our environment, processed foods, or excess stress. The dosing of Total Defense is very flexible, which makes it usable by a number of different people. On the bottle, you'll see that it suggests 2 capsules with 3 different meals throughout the day. However, you can adjust this depending on what you need. As an example, let's say you're eating very good, you're making your meals at home, and you're feeling pretty good about your diet and wellness. Well, then you can just stick to about 2 capsules per day and just use what we would call a micro dose strategy. Now, as another example, let's say you start to travel more, maybe your life stress goes up and you're just not eating as well as you typically would. Well, at this time, you can then increase your dose to either 4 or 6 capsules throughout the day. Total Defense is an active form multivitamin. Now, what that means is that each individual ingredient in Total Defense is in its most bioavailable form, which is the type that the body is best at absorbing. Now, compare this to cheaper multivitamins, which use types of ingredients which are a lot cheaper and therefore not as well absorbed by the body. Now, let's take the vitamin folate, for example. This is one of the B vitamins. Now, oftentimes in cheap multivitamins, you'll see folate listed as something called folic acid. So this is a synthetic type of folate, which actually has to go through several steps throughout the body before it's actually usable. What this means is that it's just not as absorbable in the body and therefore doesn't have the full effect of folate. In contrast, Total Defense uses the active form of folate called methyl tetrahydrofolate, or MTHF for short. Now, the reason this is superior is that this is the type that you'll actually find in most foods and therefore is a lot easier for the body to absorb. Now, this leads to more noticeable benefits from Total Defense versus other cheaper multivitamins. When we supplement Total Defense with a meal, you can just imagine that all the various vitamins and minerals that it contains really does blend in with those micronutrients that we get from that meal we consume. So you can just think of it as really an addition or an improvement to that meal that we're having. Now, of course, once this meal is metabolized, the body will eventually extract all of those micronutrients found in the food and in those micronutrients to then drive all of the various mechanisms throughout the body that we need these micronutrients for. Total Defense supplies the micronutrients that the whole body needs for so many different mechanisms. That means that when you use Total Defense, you can notice a wide range of benefits to your daily wellness. You might feel this as improvements to energy, maybe improvements to brain function, better sleep, or even improvements to your tolerance to stress and a better immune system. Now, there is various people who could benefit even more from supplementation with Total Defense. This would include athletes, because athletes really put their body through so much more stress and activity, and this burns up more micronutrients than the average individual. In addition to this, elderly people can also benefit more from these micronutrients because some of the different processes of the body just aren't as good as what they once were. Because everyone needs these micronutrients, anybody can use Total Defense. Now, that being said, if you follow a more processed diet, you can really benefit from supplementation with Total Defense. If you're a busy professional who's always traveling and eating on the road and your meals just aren't ideal, you can use this while traveling and once you're at home to replenish what you're missing out on. People often ask us why we don't just have a 1 per day. Now, the thing about 1 per day is you can only fit so much powder or so many micronutrients into a single capsule. What this means is that when you consume that 1 a day, it just doesn't have as much of those vitamins and minerals as you actually need. That's why with Total Defense, we suggest a couple more capsules per day to give you more of the powder, which is the active ingredient that you actually want and need for health.